So we talked about trials and tribulations and um, not truths that have been fed to us. Yet I want you to get really excited. And the reason why there is an opportunity for excitement is because we are living in a magical time, a time where the old karmic timelines are being completed and new energy is coming through, which is something that has been known for centuries. And some cultures, they actually identified this period as the potential renaissance for humankind. So the good news is that even though it looks very disturbing and we see so much chaotic energy politically, economically, like all the natural disasters, it's actually a sign of change, sign of the shift in the timelines. And you and I have an opportunity to actually play an important role in this collective evolution. So, to understand what it means to us and why us and why now, I want to discuss the way duality works. So when we talk about source energy, we sometimes refer to the space of everything and nothing. And that construct of source is usually experienced by us in our reality through duality of darkness and light, light and heaviness, masculine energy and feminine energy. So we live in the realm of contrasts. And it's actually a very beautiful place to be because here we get to explore our ability to create. Like, if you think about it, this realm gives you an opportunity to be anything. Each one of us can tap into the Christ frequency and antichrist frequency. So that spectrum of experiences is something that we can absolutely choose because we operate in the environment of the free will. Now, in order for us to take this conversation into the timelines, I would like to first start discussing the way that duality expresses itself through masculine and feminine energy. And I would like to use the analogy of the breathing. So let's look at the inhale as masculine energy. Inhale starts the things, it generates and builds up energy, it expands and creates movements. When we exhale, this is the embodiment of the feminine energy. It finishes things, it disperses and dissipates energy, it relaxes and creates stillness. So, and it also lets things go. So the exchange of breathing is what creates life in our body. It exchanges stillness for movement, it exchanges carbon dioxide for oxygen. And the interaction between the masculine and feminine energy is the force that creates in this reality. Now, if you look at breathing, you can probably help me identify 4 stages: the rest, the inhalation, the suspension, and the exhalation. We can also compare it to 4 seasons of nature: the winter, the spring, the summer, the autumn, 4 stages of life cycle: the birth, the youth, the middle years, the old age, 4 stages of product life cycle of the introduction, the growth, the maturity, the decline. For those of you who watched a very powerful movie, Agora, you can actually trace back how a scholar named Hipasha was able to uncover that the planets do not rotate in circles. They actually have oval-like orbits. And if you look at the orbit of Sun, it actually has another star that orbits around it. So we live in a two solar system reality. Our solar system is a binary star system, which means that there is another star system orbiting around Sun. And that star is called Sirius. So as we move away from Sirius, our solar system gets darker, denser, and if we consider consciousness as light, consciousness fades. And as we move closer to Sirius, we receive more light, so consciousness comes in. And if you look at the frequency of our emotional spectrum, fear, greed, shame, guilt, those are dense, heavy, I would say dark frequencies, which often put us in our survival states where we forget that we are love, we forget that we are light. On the opposite side of the spectrum, all prophets, all masters, sometimes they even are depicted with a halo, that energetic light crown, right? They usually bring in this high vibrational frequency of love and light, and very often that's their message. So those two solar systems orbit one another, and depending on where Sun is in relationship to Sirius, it creates a certain energetic weather on planet Earth. So one full rotation through the orbit takes about 24,000 years. And right now, we are actually coming out of the most distant point in this orbit. So astrologically speaking, we are coming out of the Kali Yuga, the age of Pisces, and that shifted in 2012. So if you remember, Mayan calendar also expired in 2012, and some people were wondering if it's the end of the world. Well, it is an end of era. And Kali Yuga is actually related to the astrological age of Pisces. And it doesn't really mean that the Pisces sign is like dark, but one of the qualifications of Pisces is underworld. It's shadow. It's the depth. It's the capacity to like explore the vastness and the darkness. And if we just look at the timeline of the past 2,000 years, world wars, rise of monotheistic religions, very often not in a peaceful manner, crusades, Holocaust. There have been a lot of collective patterns that kind of like repeat themselves. And I believe that the reason why it's been such a dark experience for us is that we as a collective had to really master the density of those heavy emotional states. And those people that are alive on planet Earth, they play a very important role to help us transcend to the new paradigm of consciousness, which is called actually the Age of Aquarius. So what does it mean for us? Our planet is currently in the stage of suspension. So we are transitioning out of kind of like heaviness into more and darkness into more light. So if you can put measurements to it, I would say that Kali Yuga was 75% masculine and 25% feminine. And if we look at the world around us, it resonates because most of the collective structures have been identified and built through the masculine prism of consciousness, and which is very like logical, structured, hierarchical, competitive, and I would also say more third dimensional way. But in order for me to talk about third dimensional way, I think it's important to speak about the first dimensional and second dimensional, and God knows how many dimensions are there, right? So for the purpose of this conversation, let's say that the first dimension, it's a dot, it's a point of singularity. And this is not like a primitive space, it's actually the foundational premise of absolute. It's right here, right now. For those of you who took geometry, you probably remember the line between two dots. Well, that's how two-dimensional reality can be identified. It's a relational dynamic between two absolutes. The third dimensional reality is what we normally attribute to what we experience through our five senses. So it's the height, the weight, and the length. This is how most of us have been trained to experience this reality logically, mentally, through the linear matter. However, I don't believe that we are linear beings. I think we have been conditioned to experience this reality through mental structures, but it's only a piece of us. It's not fully who we are. So the fourth dimension adds on that component of time, and the fifth dimension adds on a component of space. And recently, not so recent, but I would say in the late 40s, oh, my nose is itching. In the late 40s, quantum physics gained a lot of momentum, specifically around development of the nuclear weapons. And the reason why is because humanity was looking at the way of hacking the linear understanding of power. And for those of you who love movies as much as I do, Oppenheimer is a great movie talking about the circumstances of creating atomic bomb. But in many ways, the quantum realm have not just appeared in the 40s. The quantum is how universe actually operates, and more scientists are agreeing to that. And now we look at the phenomena like black holes, and we are wondering if those are the portals, and even US government cannot mitigate the truth about the existence of UFOs. So we're definitely non-linear, and the best way to explain it to yourself is that sometimes you have visceral feelings, visceral knowings. Those knowings are not always correlating to the facts or the logic. So that is your being reacting to the additional multisensory perspectives that are actually available that our cognitive structures do not always comprehend. So we are trying collectively to rise out of this linear dogma of thinking that we are this dirty, sinful beings into creative potency of humanity, where each one of us truly perceives himself or herself as divine. And it's not an easy process because so many of us viscerally remember the level of persecution and hurt and pain, and this dynamic of the societal order, which is based on competition, doesn't really work for our souls. So Darwin probably is not very happy because the survival of the fittest was not supposed to be the way our society actually works. And we went into righteousness and we went into competition, which creates distortion in our fabric of connecting, the connecting fabric of the humanity. We are actually communal beings. So the good news is that the competitive nature of our societal structures is being questioned and actually reshaped. And the reason why is because the feminine is rising. And the reason why the feminine is rising is because we are shifting out of the winter state in a spring where we do not want to be in that density anymore, and we want more feminine. But it's not about just becoming feminine suddenly. It's about really integrating two ways of being so that we can have access to the masculine, the doingness, but also mastered the feminine, the beingness. And I love the analogy of breathing because this is how we learn to breathe again, right? We have been inhaling, pushing outwards, expanding, doing, competing, proving, and it's time to train ourselves to exhale, which is to slow down, to be still, to be. And again, the goal is not to move out of doingness into complete beingness. We want to have the fluidity of both principles, both energies. We want to master the natural flow of our universe, which is actually probably more feminine. But what we as a collective have to learn is relaxation. It's letting go. And in order to go through this process of restructuring, we are going to face entropy. And I feel like that's what we see in our politics, in our climate crisis. Entropy shows up as a movement away from order and structure. So things are falling apart, they're breaking down. So if you are personally experiencing major catastrophes in your life, or things don't work, this is the feminine rising in you, through you. And it's not always an easy process. I actually went through it myself, and I had to let go all of my identities, identity of a successful professional. I was an award-winning banker at the time, an identity of a wife. I actually filed for divorce when my sons were 1 and 3 years old. An identity of a daughter. I had to do a lot of inner child work to calibrate myself back to me. I'm the only child, and in my culture, children are an extension of their parents, which obviously is not a very healthy energetic boundary. So the good news is that entropy is an invitation for the calibration. We see the feminine rising in the decentralization of the decision-making structures. Think globalization, think crypto. A lot of corporate entities are no longer using the org structure of the hierarchy. It's more of an inclusion and circular board of directors style. And I think the reason why we see that is because the competitive dynamic of the Piscean age created a realm of haves and have-nots, which puts us in this mental comprehension that some are better than others, yet we are on the precipice of new realm of human exploration, where each one of us can actually embody the divine and use our free will to create magic, to create joy. So in the past, in order to have access to the information, you had to belong to some organization, some cultural structures, some order, like think of Masons or Templars. I've studied Kundalini extensively, and Kundalini came to India from Egypt and was stored inside of Sikh religion. So you had to be a person of Indian descent and Sikh in order to have access to Kundalini methodology. Another example would be Kabbalah. For a very long time, Kabbalah was specifically protected by Jewish people for Jewish people. However, in the new realm, the information is decentralized and it becomes very easily accessible, which actually creates a deeper problem. On one hand, we have more data points than ever, right? Like what we can access through our cell phone is probably more information than most presidents had in the history of the United States. But on the other hand, we have to use our discernment. And discernment is not easy because truth is not universal. What is true for one may not be true for another. So each one of us have to master our internal realm of awareness to figure out what actually is true for us individually. That's a beautiful opportunity to become more balanced and leave the karmic grid of third dimensional realm of consciousness, because those two paradigms, they coexist at the same time. There are plenty of people already that are functioning in the fifth dimensional reality where they collapse time and space, and you may like them, you may not. But if you see individuals that have phenomenal outputs like Elon Musk, that is the person that went through his own evolutionary process to dream and dare and be. So you may not like him, but what he's achieving in his 24 hours is probably admirable, because it's not a typical day for for us. And the reason why is because most of us are still living in the survival consciousness, and that is why third dimensional reality feels so real. We've been actually indoctrinated in our own limiting beliefs, thinking that they are real. So for many centuries, we collectively agreed to live in this Newtonian paradigm of consciousness, of like cause and effect. And most people in the Western realm have been taught to experience this reality through our mental and logical perception. However, we are multidimensional beings, and we are just taught to be linear. So for those of you who have been attracted to any tools of consciousness, you're actually hearing your soul calling. It is the time for all of us to embody our creative magic, because that's what we are. We are magic. And that magic actually unfolds through the feminine, not just the woman. That feminine exists in men as well. It's not a gender specific construct. It's just how well you energetically breathe. Are you inhaling? Are you exhaling? And we women are the natural carriers of life and magic. I also want to bring into your awareness that we are probably the first generations of women in the long, long history of our civilization that can freely embody our wisdom, our truth through our beings. We just need to give ourselves permission, which sounds like an easy thing, but it's not. Because each one of us has experienced and impersonated the witch wound, the bitch wound, the whore wound, and those wounds specifically cover in Claim Your Queendom. So we all know what happened to those of us who stood up and revered the magical ways. You know, they were burned at stake, they were condemned, they were prosecuted. So for many of us, passivity and people pleasing has become a safe place of being, but it's not, because those ways of being actually fracture our energetic core, and it makes us susceptible to manipulation, disrespect, numbing. You know, some of us feel really numb, like we don't know what we want to create. We don't even dream anymore because it feels so out of reach. And if we do this long enough to ourselves, we become disconnected from life itself. And this is where depression and anxiety live. So, my invitation for you is to actually pay attention to magic, because it's present. We just need to perceive it. And there is no right or wrong answer to do life, to go through the ascension process. Yet, this is the timeline that gives us a marvelous opportunity to master our own divinity and our own creative power. If you want to learn how to reclaim your multidimensional self, your magic, your joy, reach out. Claim Your Queendom can be your answer to reclaim your truth, your value, your purpose. Come play in the light grid where everything is possible. And also pay attention, because in the collective entropy, there are entry points for magic to occur. And if enough people believe in it, the entire paradigm of our collective awareness is shifting. And at this point, even the stars support us.